Alright guys, welcome to Flavo Rihanna's MMA show. I'm your host Flavo Rihanna, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright guys, so UFC Vegas 78 is officially in the books now. It was headlined by RDA versus Vicente Luque. Co-main evented had Hakeem Dawodu versus Cub Swanson. And honestly, it really just felt like a card. It wasn't a card that, I know the media were talking about it, that this may be one of the worst Apex cards that the UFC has ever put on. That's capped because of the fact that there are plenty of them. Just look back at Jessica Eye versus Cynthia Calvillo. I believe that was in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, June of 2020, if my memory serves correctly. That was a pretty bad card, and that was actually in the very beginning of the pandemic when they were starting to have consistent Apex cards consistently, and that was pretty much like a nothing burger of a card. But this card overall, I gotta say, it was pretty fun. Was it something that I'm gonna constantly look back? No, not really. Just because of the fact that the main event, in my opinion, once again, we are having multiple main events back to back, where wrestling is becoming the factor, and wrestling is served well and large in this main event. And last main event, I didn't get a chance to make a video about it, but it was pretty bad. It was one of the worst main events that I physically have seen in quite some time. And then Corey Sandhagen, I understand, comes out saying that he got injured, but man, there's something about winning a fight, but there's also something that you have fans in attendance paying to see you what's it called, another high level striker. And part of the business, I believe, is also trying to entertain, and is not only winning, because you can win, not a problem, all right, and then rack up wins after win after win, all right, when we saw Corey Sandhagen last week, all right. But look what that will get you. Similar in the same stratosphere that Bilal Muhammad is, all right, where you are on a 9-10 fight win streak, and you still haven't received any of a title shot. But then you have newcomers in that come in and start blasting people, all right, and start getting knockout after knockout after knockout, and they accelerate, a la Alex Pieda, right? So this main event coming in, I was thinking, all right, we're gonna have a good matchup, but I feel like RDA is gonna be able to control the wrestling and stuff like that. It actually was in reverse. All right, Vicente Luque, who last time we seen him fight, he ended up fighting Jeff Neal and ended up having a brain hemorrhage. I felt like he was very conservative in this fight, didn't want to take any chances, and I think that this is possibly going to be the Vicente Luque that we're going to see moving on forward. And it just sucks because, we see Michelle Pieda, comes into the UFC, exciting, now try to become more wrestling oriented, right? Very conservative. Corey Sandhagen, an exciting fighter, now becoming a little bit wrestling oriented, but the thing is just that they're not doing much with the wrestling, they're just holding you down. And that's just the part that I tell people all the time. There's different styles of wrestling that becomes exciting, and there's different styles of wrestling that becomes boring. And I feel like Corey Sandhagen and Vicente Luque are becoming the style of wrestling that fans do not want to see and pay to watch. All right, especially if you're going to be in attendance. And Luque, was a little bit more exciting than Corey Sandhagen. I had him winning 3 rounds to 2, which RDA ended up coming out in the 5th round. Him being down 3 rounds to 1, he was putting it on Luque, and Luque looked like he got flashbacks of the beating that he ended up receiving against Jeff Neal, and I felt like it forced him to result in that wrestling. And I feel like that's the kind of style matchup that Luque is going to impose on his opponents moving on forward, just because you're getting a brain hemorrhage, all right? Pretty bad stuff right there. And, the possibility of you not being able to fight, for your career anymore, it's pretty scary stuff. And I think that Luque is going to take a very conservative action. He has these people from Kill Cliff that are going to train him and to take, good measures into the way that he ends up fighting. He has Kamaru Usman, who is a training partner of his whenever he goes down to South Florida. I think that Luque is going to be fine, try to climb up the ranks, but I don't really see him fighting for a title. He had his opportunities on fighting for a title, and I just think that the losses to Bilal Muhammad, the losses to Jeff Neal and stuff like that, and not having a very I would say like memorable performance for people to be like, all right, this is who we're gonna fight. I just see that this is gonna be this matchup that ended up happening really didn't have much stakes in it. It was just, I'm gonna hold on to my number 10 ranking. What I see for Luque next is excuse me. I see him fighting somebody like Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland, who's trying to climb up the rankings. I feel like if he fights somebody like Kevin Holland, I think Holland is going to try to impose, Luque, to bring back the craziness, the fun, exciting fighter that we did see him have before. And trust me, I would love to see that Vicente Luque. That Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland, sign me up. I'll give you my wallet. Take the money that's inside there. All right. As for RDA, it just seems like RDA, he's not going to fight for a title anytime soon, or if not ever. I mean, he is 38. The man has like close to 20 years in fighting, if not 20 years in fighting. I just think that RDA is on the back nine. He probably has about 3 to 4 more fights left in his career. I have a strong feeling that RDA is going to have to fight up and comers. I know that he doesn't want to, but if anything, he's gonna have to, deal with those type of matchups that are gonna be offered towards him, because he is a name. He is a former lightweight champion. All right, so there is value in defeating somebody of his stature. It's just be very hard. I mean, unless somebody like a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson ends up saying, you know what, I want to fight him, which really wouldn't make any sense, because of the fact that why would Wonderboy want to take some of a fight of that nature just to say that he defeated a former champion? It's going to be tough to see where RDA goes from here. He's going to have to fight up-and-coming killers, I strongly believe that if Ian Machado Gary defeats Neil Magny on Saturday in Boston, I feel like that would be the next matchup for RDA. But overall, the main event, it was alright. I mean, it wasn't something that I'm gonna go back and watch unless I have to break down film. But overall, Luque ended up imposing wrestling that I don't think RDA was, zeroed in on. And with RDA being the smaller fighter, he automatically gives up size, and Luque looks like the natural welterweight compared to RDA, and that was a big difference in when it came down to the clinching and into the holding one another against the fence. What it came down to, Hakeem Dawodu versus Cub Swanson. Now I gotta say, I had it 2-1 Hakeem Dawodu. All right, not because I ended up placing a bet on Dawodu, but I just felt that round 1 I gave it to Cub, round 2 I gave it to Dawodu, round 3 I gave it to Dawodu, and I felt like Dawodu should have came up as a winner, and even Cub Swanson even acknowledged, thinking that he had lost the fight. But it is what it is. I wouldn't call it robbery. I would just think that, the judges, didn't see the rounds correctly. It just sucks for Hakeem Dawodu. I think, what is he, back-to-back losses now in his career, or is on a 3-fight losing streak. Cub Swanson gets a very well-needed victory. As for Cub, let's see what he ends up getting next. I predict he's going to fight somebody like a Fernando Padilla. That would be something exciting. As for Hakeem Dawodu, I mean, he's going to have to fight these up and comers. He was at one point, I thought that he was going to be a good top 10 featherweight, but it just seems like every time he gets closer into that top 15, top 10, he always takes like 2 steps back. So that just seems like the moral of the story for Hakeem Dawodu in his UFC career. Chris Daukaus makes jumps down from heavyweight to light heavyweight. He makes a good cut. He looked pretty lean and stuff like that. I felt like that's something that he should have gone a long time ago. One thing he is giving up going down, and I noticed, was that he had very good speed at heavyweight, and a lot of heavyweights, had a hard time trying to, calculate the speed of Chris Daukaus. But now going down to light heavyweight, a lot of people had that same speed that he has, and he was fighting a killer in Khalil Roundtree. Now, Khalil Roundtree, in my opinion, I feel like he has the the ability to be a title contender, but he needs to get all his mentals correctly, right? Because sometimes I feel like he goes in there and he's not all there, and then sometimes he becomes like the Muay Thai fighter that he is, the Muay Thai killer, and just starts blasting dudes. And you know what? On Saturday, that's exactly what he ended up doing. He was able to hurt Dawkins immediately in the first round. Laying power shots. What's it called? Dawkins throwing little combinations, and he was holding his own. But Dawkins, once again, he fails to cover up his chin. He doesn't know how to guard his chin correctly. The way he defends his head is very improper, and Roundtree was able to take advantage of it, and we just saw how it was weighing in on Chris Dawkins, and all Roundtree had to do was throw a straight left down the middle and dropped Chris Dawkins, landing him on the back of his head, and all you see is Roundtree, winding up and just start hammering away on vicious ground and pound. It didn't last long. It was a fight that lasted, I think, up to like the 3-minute mark. It just seems like Chris Dawkins may not be suited in for the UFC for much longer. This is already 3 to 4 consecutive losses that are coming in as knockouts. All right, not good. His brother got cut earlier in the summer, and I have a strong feeling that Chris Dawkins will be cut as well too. And the last fight the last two fights I wanted to talk about, Terrence McKinney versus Mike Breeden. Now, McKinney, we just saw him fight I think it was on July 15th. Man, this guy does not like to take a breather, because this guy comes in and immediately applies the pressure. I felt it was he needed to get this win, and he ended up getting the win against Mike Breeden. Sorry, that was my dog. And Terrence McKinney just, applied the pressure. Was good on the striking department. Started blasting kicks and body shots and stuff like that. Breeden didn't like it. He was against the fence, and referee was like, enough is enough. After a good 15 consecutive punches that Breeden wasn't defending, referee stopped the fight, and McKinney is back in the win column. I think it's very good that he moved down to Texas. He's training with Kevin Holland. We know how Kevin Holland is. He likes to take a lot of short notice fights. McKinney's doing the same thing too. The UFC has something with McKinney that I feel that if they nurture it correctly, this kid could become a good, a star of the same ilk as Kevin Holland, where people are gonna want to be clamoring to see him fight, not see him fight on prelims in the Apex. He'll most likely be fighting in main cards in the Apex, or whatever co-main events, if not main cards on in front of a crowd on a fight night and stuff like that. So I like where Terrence McKinney's head is at. I think he has a bright future. Him teaming up with Jamal Hill, Kevin Holland, those guys know how to strike. He's getting better every day that he's stepping into the octagon, and I feel like the future is bright for him. As for the next and last fight I wanted to talk about was Marcus McGee versus JP Buys. Now, unfortunately, JP Buys has been going through a very rough patch. I don't want to really, go too in depth with it. I mean, you guys could just look it up on MMAfighting.com and stuff like that. His whole history and stuff like that. He's fighting a killer in Marcus McGee, who we saw him fight against Journey Newson, and he ended up, doing quick work of Journey Newson. JP Buys, in my opinion, he is not a bantamweight. He is a flyweight, and him taking this fight against Marcus McGee, who is a well-established bantamweight. I thought it was a bad stylistic matchup, and once again, it was a scene, continuation of what ended up happening when we ended up seeing JP fight at bantamweight against Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson had knocked him all over the place. JP was able to last into the final bell. This time it wasn't the same outcome. JP couldn't last outside of the first round. He ended up getting knocked out in the first round. Marcus McGee was able to toy with him. He ended up throwing a right hook. JP falls face first, and thank God that Marcus didn't ended up doing a follow-up shot, because JP was done. And it's just sad because he's gonna get cut. And I just think that he's another one that needs to get his mentals in order. Hopefully things go well for him. Hopefully he can, regroup. Him stay at Vegas. Him fight, continue to train in Extreme Couture. I think he'll get back into the UFC. Marcus McGee is a great bantamweight. I think he's gonna get really good. Him training in with Sean O'Malley, who's going to be fighting for the bantamweight title in Boston this Saturday against Aljamain Sterling. I think that McGee's getting better, and don't be surprised if you see Marcus McGee by next year. He's inside the top 10. But guys, let me know what you guys think. Who do you think? Khalil Roundtree should fight next? Is Marcus McGee, somebody that you guys will be interested in watching, as his career starts progressing? And Terrence McKinney, do you like the idea that he's taking a lot of short notice fights? And who should he fight next? And as for the main event, are you happy with the result? Do you think that Vicente Luque might end up being somebody of a wrestler moving on forward? And how many more fights do you think RDA is going to fight, remaining, with the UFC? Until then, guys, I am Flavo Oriana. Thank you for tuning in to the Flavo Oriana MMA show, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace, guys, and have a good one. See ya.